Hey there, I'm Srini, the creator of Maximize Your Output with MEM. No. Hey, I'm Srini, the creator of Maximize Your Output with MEM. Are you a teacher who's concerned about your students using AI to do things like write essays? It's a pretty common concern, but what if we could flip that script? Imagine being able to use AI in a way that helps students grasp the material better, improve the learning experience, and personalize each student's learning experience. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that, how to set up a learning environment using AI and customize that learning experience for every student using a Socratic method approach. Now, let's get to the tutorial. So one of the reasons I wanted to do this tutorial is because one of the things I realized is that AI can be actually very transformative for a learning experience. And one of the things that I've kept seeing over and over in articles about education as it relates to AI is major concerns about things like plagiarism, people being lazy. But in reality, if we rethink the way that we are going to utilize AI and set up the environment in the right way, it can actually be a very transformative tool that enhances the learning experience for the students, leads to better student outcomes, makes the process of learning more engaging, and actually also improves students' ability to understand what they've learned rather than just going through rote memorization. So the major key to making this work is obviously the information that you feed AI. And we're doing this inside of MEM, but this can also be replicated in other language models like ChatGPT. And so the first key is what we call setting up your learning environment. And really, it's not much different than explaining to your students what the class is about and handing them a syllabus. So in this case, what we've done is we've created one MEM, which is basically class about X. And in this case, this class happens to be about creative writing, where we basically give it a syllabus, so to speak. This basically says, okay, this is what this class is about. This is what the students in this class are going to learn. And the other thing you can do is you can actually upload a syllabus if you wanted to, or import it into MEM, convert it into a format that MEM will understand, like just copy and paste it, and then have MemChat rewrite that syllabus for you so that it's structured in a way that MemChat can interpret. So this is just a basic idea here of what this class is about. So here we've got the sort of overview of our creative writing class. This would basically be what you might see in a course catalog, or this might be the syllabus for a class that a teacher hands out. The other thing that we have to do, which is the most important part, is actually giving the material to the AI. So in this case, here are our course materials. Now, things you'll notice here is that we basically have mapped each of the course materials to a particular section of the course, but this would become even richer if we actually had the content from each one of these books and each one of these pieces of material already inside of MEM. So if we had, for example, the full content of Anne Lamott's book, Bird by Bird, or all of the content from Austin Kleon's book, Steal Like an Artist, this actually will make the entire dialogue with the AI a lot more engaging, a lot more interactive, and much richer. Now comes the really fun part. And the whole idea here is that we don't want to use this model to have students just use AI to generate answers to questions. We actually want them to engage. And what this is designed to do is basically create a Socratic method learning experience for students regardless of the topic. And in order to do that, what we have to do is we have to actually design a model that allows AI to interpret it. And calling this a model really honestly is just a fancy way of saying another MEM. And that MEM basically is instructions for what MemChat needs to do in order to initiate a study session. So you can see here that basically what we've done is we use what's called an objective process output framework, where we tell MemChat what the objective is, we tell it what the process it will follow is, and we tell it what we want the output to be in terms of the student experience. Now, the other thing you can do is you can just take this prompt here and you can cut and paste it into MemChat, and MemChat will actually write the MEM for you that contains the instructions for a student to initiate this. And the thing is that you can either customize this yourself, or you can do it in a more simple way, which is basically say create a Socratic method model and use the bidirectional links from these two notes. Now, you might have to explain to it what the Socratic method model is, even though more than likely it will understand what that is. And this is one of the things that consistently I keep seeing with AI is the clearer you are with your communication in terms of what you're trying to do, the better it's going to be. So if you're a teacher, for example, what you can basically do is say, I want to create an interactive model that allows my students to use AI to study the materials in my course and engage in a dialogue with MemChat. So then it will actually tell you exactly how you might do this. And the thing you have to be clear about is tell it that, no, I don't want this to just be a list of things. I want this to actually have instructions so that when my student says initiate Socrates English 101, then what will happen is MemChat will know, let's go ahead and do this. So we've laid the basic foundation. We've given it our synopsis of the class, or basically what is our syllabus and our description of what the class is about. We've included some course materials, and we've created the model that will allow for an interactive discussion. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to initiate the model. So I'm going to go into MemChat, and I'm just going to copy and paste this prompt, which is the title of this note. And what you'll see here is that we will basically initiate a study session. So now what's going to happen is instead of just regurgitating answers, you can see that it actually is programmed here to talk about one of the topics. You can actually set it up so that it actually will let the student choose. So let's go ahead and choose Introduction to Creative Writing as one of our topics, and I'm just going to go ahead and put that in there. And so now what will happen is MemChat will actually carry us through a series of questions. So you can see here that it's giving me exercise. So you can see here that it actually is already asking me questions and telling me, what we might do. So in my case, I can say, yeah, I have read Bird by Bird. And I'm going to tell it my biggest takeaway is that, well, writing begins with terrible first efforts. And so, funny enough, what it's doing is it's taking the content from a book, and keep in mind, we don't even necessarily have the content from that book here inside of Mem. If we were to actually have that content inside of here, it would actually be really powerful. The other thing that's happening here is when we answer questions, we tend to answer them in our own words. And the funny thing about that is that because you're answering in your own words, what ends up happening is that even if your student uses AI, for example, to complete a homework assignment or turn in an exercise like this one, then what will happen is it will actually write it in their own words. So basically what we're saying here is writing a one-page story, and I can just basically say, okay, my nephew was given a bunch of bananas, and he tried to hide them. The ottoman, but he wasn't strong enough to actually lift the bunch. And you can see here that I'm doing an abbreviated version of what this is. And so you can see here that it's actually guiding us through this process in a lot of ways and actually helping us apply these concepts. So suddenly what at one point would have been a passive consumption experience where a student just reads something and hopefully understands it and then writes what you ask them to, they actually end up engaging in this dialogue that ends up being deeply personalized. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, I'm not ready to do this yet. Can we please write up a note for my study session? And so what it will now do is it will say, okay, great, would you like to create a note for this? So we can program it to do that. There's certain things we have to do here. So again, it's not perfect, as you can see. So there are probably some modifications we would need to make to the instructions so that it knows when I say I'm not ready, but I'm ready to wrap up this session. So I can just say, no, but can you write up a note for me? And so the interesting thing here is you have the suggested prompts, but you can see here that we are now basically making this entire experience much more engaging and much more in-depth than somebody who passively consumes information. So the notes become valuable, the learning experience completely changes. So now let's go back to our basic steps for how to do this. So the first key is to set up the learning environment. And that is simply by creating a mem that has details in terms of what the class is about, with basically the sort of syllabus, so to speak. The next thing you need to do is to create another mem, which actually has your course materials. And then finally, we have to create our third mem, which is what initiates the entire study session. So one of the things I think that is really powerful about this is that it allows you to create a personalized learning experience for students at scale. But not only that, I think it encourages a diversity of thought in a classroom, because every student is going to come to this with something different. They're going to bring different takeaways. And so rather than seeing AI as a threat to the way that we educate, we can start to see it as something that enhances the way that we educate and really dramatically improve both student engagement in the classroom as well as potentially improve student outcomes, because they have a much more concrete and in-depth understanding. Now, we've done this with a very, very simple idea, but I encourage you to take these ideas and try them with something a bit more complex. So if you're a teacher, give it a try with your classroom and see what happens. And the key here is to basically giving students a bit more freedom in terms of their ability to explore. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below.